Tattoo artists of Reddit, what is the most wholesome story behind a tattoo you did? My ex is a tattoo artist. The most wholesome thing she ever did on someone was two drunk English guys walked into the shop a few minutes before closing. They were best friends on a road trip across the states with the ashes of the third friend that was supposed to go with them. They had been planning it for years. They both got his name tattooed on their ass. The plan for them was to show their ass to historical places. Apparently the friend wanted to moon Mount Rushmore. They decided that they'd show their ass to all of the historical places they were visiting. That's hilarious, inappropriate and heartwarming. A friend of mine is a tattoo artist. She got a guy come in with a photo of a tattoo on someone and insisted it be placed in the same place. Exactly the same. It was a pink butterfly on the right wrist. When she asked him questions about it, he got defensive and just wanted to get it done. He was a big guy with a nearly full body of tattoos. Getting a pink butterfly on his wrist. Anyway, she does the tattoo. Only took about 30 minutes, and when he saw the finished tattoo he started to cry. It was his daughter's tattoo, one he took her to get. She had died a couple of weeks before in an auto accident, and he wanted to get her tattoo as a memorial. When he tried to explain beforehand, he kept getting choked up and got defensive automatically, as guys often do. TBF, when people ask me about my tattoos I find it easier to just say something like they are personal, because otherwise I usually have to explain what a Skyrim is, and why I have the dragon word for full tapped on me. I have a heart with the word mom in it on my arm and people are always like, oh you must really love your mom, and I just say yeah instead of the truth. That I got it ironically, because I knew my mom would hate it. I was a piercer, and during my apprenticeship I worked counter and sat in on tattoos. Dad let a kid draw whatever he wanted on him because the kid had cancer. The kid drew an outline and was having trouble, so it wasn't an exact drawing the kid did, but the artist stayed in the outline, asked questions like, do you want me to color it in? Do you want it real or like a stuffed animal? He basically used both their creativity to fill out the middle of the outlines the kid did, and it actually looked really good. Dude has a pink and purple fat stuffed unicorn with its tongue sticking out on just over his heart. The artist took a photo and it was in the binder you can look through of his work on the counter, but the story is not. Not sure if the kid is alive or not. This was like 9 years ago. I'm 55. I told my adult kids that I would get whatever tattoo they wanted me to get. I have 5 kids. So far I have an orca whale diving into an ocean. That is my daughter's fingerprint and a picture from Dr. Seuss's Oh the Places You'll Go. Still waiting for the others to decide. It's hard to pick a particular one because people come in for sentimental reasons all the time. Certainly any memorial piece can be emotional for the client, and since I'm a sympathetic crier I always end up explaining their aftercare with the back quote, trying not to cry too wobble in my voice. Recently, though, I did a portrait of a woman's husband with his own signature reproduced underneath. His name was Tommy, and she brought in a memory book of photos she'd made of her and him together that she'd given him on his last birthday before he passed from a sudden cancer, 2 weeks from diagnosis to death. Once the tattoo was done we flipped through the book together, and she explained where they were and why he was so wonderful. Throughout the next few weeks I've had half a dozen people come in raving about the portrait and how much everyone loves it, and sharing memories with me about the guy. He was very well loved by the community, and I'm honored I got to tattoo him. Tattoo artist for about 2 years here. Last winter I had a happy couple in their 20s walk in wanting tattoos. I didn't think much of it because we take walk-ins every day. The girl goes first and got a small heart on her wrist. The guy goes second and gets a traditional diamond tattoo. It's basically just a really simple cartoon version of a diamond. I ask him why he wants this and just says he likes the design. Alright, no problem. They both leave happy. A week later I get a message from the girl thanking me for making their tattoo day so special. The guy had proposed to her later that evening after being together for 5 years. He got the tattoo to commemorate their engagement while she had no idea that he was going to propose. This still warms my heart every time I think about it. And also I'm glad she said yes, because that would have sucked for him. Not a tattoo artist and definitely not as wholesome as some other stories here. A couple years ago my grandmother, 80s, and my aunt, late 50s, came to visit my family. My mother and her sister had agreed to get tattoos. After these were done, grandma liked them so much that she got one too. When grandma got back to her nursing home, all of her lady friends that lived there with her were jealous of her tattoo, so they got the staff to set them up a trip and they all went and got tattoos. My grandma is one of the sweetest ladies in the whole world. Obligatory not a tattoo artist, but I have a tattoo that means a lot to me, but has a ridiculous story behind it that feels appropriate to tell here and is nearly impossible to tell in person. This'll be long and very dweeby. I have a pretty big Pokemon tattoo on my forearm. I love Pokemon, but it is not a Pokemon most people would get tattooed on them. I've never seen another of this particular Pokemon, and when people ask what it is, and I tell them, 99% of the time I get a blank look, or I don't know that one. It's Pokemon number 684, Swirlix, the fairy type cotton candy puppy, surrounded by sweets. When I was in high school, I was suffering from horrendous mental health issues that had me in and out of professional care. During the course of my treatment, my doctor suggested I get a dog as a companion, because a dog will never judge you and is always happy to be with you. You'll matter to a dog, and I really needed to feel like I mattered. So I begged my parents to let me get a dog. When I was 18, my dad, who was not sentimental and usually not very understanding regarding my mental health, decided it was a good idea and for Christmas, got me a puppy. We named her Wicket because when she was a baby she looked like a Nuok. She was a little mutt, a mix of Yorkie, Poodle, and Pomeranian, or as my brother called her, a Porkadoodle. This dog was my best friend from the get-go. She slept in my bed every night. She was sweet and gentle and so friendly. She gave me a reason to keep going every day. I loved her so much. A couple years later, my dad died very suddenly due to cancer. She was one of the last gifts he ever gave me. Skip forward, I'm in my 30s and my best friend, an artist, got me into collecting Pokemon cards again like when I was a kid. It was a fun hobby. I love collecting stuff. During this time, we had gotten into a discussion about my dog, now old but still my best pal, and what Pokemon she would be. Because she was fluffy and goofy and always had her tongue hanging out, my friend said she makes me think of a Swirlix. Agreed. Swirlix sounds right. A few months later, Wicket's health took a turn and there wasn't anything to be done. I opted to keep her and home since she wasn't in pain, and cared for her as best I could, and held her in my arms, and told her I loved her as she died. I have never cried that hard in my life. Not only was she my best friend, she was one of the last gifts I got from my dad. I felt like I was losing so much. I was inconsolable for days. Had to have someone call in sick for me to work, because I was completely unable to talk. About 5 days later, I went back to work. It was back to business as usual. I felt so defeated and alone though, and it was terrible. I kept being haunted by my best little Swirlix puppy just dying in my arms as I told her I loved her and apologized that I couldn't do anything. I hoped she didn't hate me. The store I worked in at the time was right next to a dollar store. The dollar store sold repackaged sets of Pokemon cards, almost always super common cards. You get like 5 in a pack for $1.50. Never foil/harless, just commons. During my break, I wanted to move around so walked next door to the store and picked up a drink, decided to nab 2 packs of the repackaged Pokemon cards just because. I picked 2 random ones from like 3 giant hanging stacks of cards, pay for my stuff, and go back to work. I had a bad customer and needed to step away for a bit because I was miserable, so I ducked into my back room and opened the cards as a distraction. Commons, the usual. But then, a Swirlix holo, a card of Swirlix looking cute and happy in a pile of sweets. I'd bought dozens of these repacks and never gotten an accidental holo, and of all the packages I could have picked from, I got this one. I burst into tears. It's stupid, but it felt like a sign or a signal that she was okay and that it was alright. I radioed my manager, another lifelong nerd, and told her I needed to go on a break. She came to see what was wrong, and she cried too, and hugged me, and told me she thought it was a sign as well. So I got my amazing artist best friend, the one that designated Wicket as a Swirlix, to redraw the Pokemon based on that card. And I got it tattooed on me as a memorial to my dog. and that moment of weird coincidence that made me feel like she was okay somewhere after all. Art of my Swirlix, surrounded with candy like on that Harlow, happy and goofy, to always remind me of my best canine pal who saved my life when I was a dumb, sick teenager, and the best gift my dad ever gave me. And that's the story of my Pokemon tattoo. And I cried typing this out.